to the second season of the Ecologies of Danger podcast. Ecologies of Danger is a project produced by the students of a course on environmental security at Colgate University. In this season, we look at the different ways in which the environment has become a security issue. In this episode, cgoodie takes a deep look into what Israel can and can't teach us about water management.
How many of you recognize this sound? For most of us living in wealthy countries, this is the product of turning on the faucet. That's all we need to know. We don't care about how the water gets there. We aren't concerned with anything beyond clean water flowing from the tap. Most people in the world aren't so fortunate. Arid regions of the world struggle to provide the estimated 2 liters of drinking water for human survival, let alone the water needed for bathing, sewage disposal, and agriculture. How can governments provide these resources to these impoverished citizens in the world's driest regions? While most struggle, Israel's government has established a system of water management and distribution to provide ample water to its peoples. Today we're going to examine the ins and outs of this system and see if it can become an inspiration for water management around the world. Located just north of the Arabian Peninsula, Israel is by no means flush with water. Look only to Israel's neighbors, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Egypt. You will see nations that struggle immensely with providing the scarce resource to their citizens. Israel possesses very few natural bodies of water that can be used extensively. The Dead Sea is the world's saltiest body of water. The Jordan River runs less than 3 feet high on average, and is also used by Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan for water. The Mediterranean Sea is endless, yes, but salt water can't be used for drinking or agriculture. In places, rainfall averages under 4 inches a year and only 3 feet in the most lush areas. There are aquifers, but overuse brought on historically low levels by the 1980s. To substitute for the current lack of natural resources, listen to PBS describe Israel's recent water management strategy.
Through a combination of recycling, conservation, and most recently, desalination technology, removing salt from salt water, Israel not only has plenty to drink, but potentially plenty to share.
We'll return to the sharing a little later, but for now let's focus on Israel's development of water management technology. Since 1953, Israel has treated wastewater, today recycling almost 3/4 of its municipal sewage. This treated and purified water is then used in agriculture, which constitutes almost 80% of Israel's water usage. By safely providing water for agriculture, almost entirely from previously used water, Israel is a leader in sustainability. And it doesn't stop there. Even farms in Israel's dry southern Negev receive water thanks to a massive water transfer system between north and south. To provide water for consumption, Israel has developed a series of desalination plants to make water from the Mediterranean Sea potable. There are currently 5 plants in operation, and yearly the plants provide 600 million cubic meters of water, enough to meet consumption needs while still adding to previously depleted aquifers. Continued innovation has driven down the cost of desalination to around 60 cents per cubic meter, a reduction of almost 400%. Technology has increased the amount of usable water, but Israel has also succeeded in encouraging conservation, both in agriculture and individual consumption. Seth Siegel reports for PragerU.
Israel charges its citizens the market price for water, no subsidies. You can have as much water as you want, but you have to pay for it. And when you pay for something, you tend to be more careful with how you use it. The biggest user of water in Israel and everywhere is agriculture. To get maximum use of its water, Israel developed the revolutionary farming technique known as drip irrigation, the process of applying micro amounts of water to individual plants at their roots. This is much more water efficient than the traditional method, still widely used around the world, of flood irrigation.
The driving force behind all of these innovations is the free market. It explains why citizens pay market prices rather than a government-subsidized price. This model encourages conservation as well as continued innovation. The desalination plants are all privately owned and operated, As competition in the industry expanded, these companies began looking into other avenues to influence Israel's water infrastructure. Water companies developed new irrigation techniques and more efficient water transfer systems to gain profits. The only drawback is the decline of organized labor in the water sector. But this privately run system is the basis for Israel's water surplus and would need to be replicated in any country attempting to ensure similar levels of water scarcity. When discussing any private institution, we must ask who has access to the resource in question. In Israel, this can be broken down in two ways: access among sectors and access between Israelis and Palestinians. Within Israel, there is a fairly equal access between agricultural and household consumption, the two largest sectors. Treated sewage is reserved for agriculture, desalinated seawater is used for consumption. Both pay the standard market price. They have access to as much as they want as long as they pay for it. Israel's technological and economic structures provide the necessary drive for conservation. The division between Palestinian and Israeli access to water is far more uneven. This story is also infinitely more complex. Conflict between Israelis and Palestinians traces back to the first Jewish settlements in modern Israel and has continued in the nearly 100 years since. Water plays a part in the conflict, but it is by no means the driving force. It is a complex web of political, geographic, structural, and religious factors that make up the conflict, and I don't have near enough time to address them all. But we can address Israel's water distribution systems and how it affects Palestinian life, especially in Gaza. Much of the water infrastructure available to Israel's citizens is not available to Palestinians. While Palestinians and Israelis live in ever closer proximity due to continued Israeli settlements, there is a growing gap in water quality and quantity. Al Jazeera profiles the poor water quality in the Gaza Strip.
According to a new UN report, Gaza's underground water network is in danger of collapse due to overuse and contamination. Salt water from the sea is seeping into freshwater supplies, and in most of the Strip, salt levels are now above the World Health Organization's guideline limit, in one case by as much as 700%.
Gaza lacks the ability to deal with these issues independently, and it has terrible health effects for the Palestinian residents. Nafez Abu Gideon is a resident of Gaza and undergoes dialysis multiple times a week. Listen to his take on water quality in Gaza.
The water here makes me sick, and my kidneys are so weak they can't take it. I buy bottled water as much as I can afford, but still, the fruit and vegetables too are contaminated from the dirty water.
It can't be said that Israel's water management system deprives Palestinians of clean water. Israel doesn't pull from the few natural sources in Gaza or the West Bank. In fact, since the growth of desalination in the early 2000s, Israel has been replenishing aquifers that run under both Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank. Still, the benefits of Israel's water system are not extended to Palestinians. Even in the few instances where Israel does share clean, potable water with Gaza, it creates a greater dependence on Israel. Israel can manipulate dependence to deny other Palestinian needs. The power dynamic between Israel and Palestinians continues to be a key impediment to the extension of Israeli water resources into Gaza. But Israel's water system itself isn't depriving Palestinians of water, nor is it stealing water from the Palestinians. We want to consider whether other nations can and should replicate Israel's system. Many will have reservations about trusting free markets with a public good. There are valid concerns, but Israel's combination of innovation and conservation is an effective pairing that the free market seems most well suited for. Others will fear that certain groups need to be excluded, as the Palestinians are currently. Israel's water system could be expanded to meet the needs of those in Gaza and the West Bank. It is only a product of a much larger, more complicated dispute that Palestinians can't have access to clean water like Israelis do. Israel's close ties with the West could explain part of its success in water management, but for any nation concerned about the possibility of future water shortages, they should strongly consider adopting lessons from Israel. For Colgate University, I'm Caleb Goodie.